It's a big job just getting by with 9 kids and a wife. But I've been working, man, dang near all my life, and I'll keep on working long as my 2 hands are fit to use. I'll drink my beer in a tavern, sing a little bit of these working man blues.
Welcome to Labor Lines, a program about issues affecting working men and women and the organizations that represent them. This program is produced by the law firm of Fusco, Brannan, Stein & Rada, with offices in Woodbury, Colmac, Medford, Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx. The firm practices in the areas of workers' compensation, occupational diseases, Social Security disability, personal injury, city and state disability pensions, and disability insurance claims. To contact the firm, call 1-800-416-5454. Your host is attorney Victor Fusco, the managing partner of Fusco, Brannan, Stein & Rada.
Drink my beer in a tavern, sing a little bit of these working man blues. This song's for the working man.
And now, here is Mr. Fusco.
Welcome to Labor Lines. No doubt the presidential debate, which occurred on Long Island at Hofstra University on Tuesday, October 16th, is still on the minds of many Long Islanders. Following the debate, we spoke with Roger Clayman, the executive director of the Long Island Federation of Labor, to get his reactions. He was there. And Christian Perez, our Labor Lines reporter, was also at Hofstra and spoke with a number of people. Chris will be in a little later on in the program, and we'll get those interviews in as well. From Congressman Peter King, former Congressman Rick Lazio, Otto Reich, former ambassador to Venezuela, and former Ohio Governor Ted Strickland. Roger Clayman from the Long Island Federation of Labor was at Hofstra for the debate, and we asked him to speak with us immediately after the debate to get his reaction to how the debate went for both candidates. Here's our discussion with Roger. We're speaking with Roger Clayman. He is, as you know, the executive director of the Long Island Federation of Labor. He was at the debate and wanted to get his reaction to it and kind of give me a nonpartisan reaction, if that's remotely possible for you, Roger.
That's very difficult. That probably is the issue that anyone has who tries to assess the debate, because you're looking at it from 2 angles. Did the 2 candidates do a good job of accomplishing what they set out to do? And in the back of your mind, you're weighing, did they resonate on the issues that I believe in?
Let's take the first question first. Just judging their performance without regard to whether they hit the issues you wanted to hear and resonated with you personally.
I felt that in the way he carried himself, the president did a far better job this time than in the first debate. He was presidential. He was serious. He was on point. He had his facts readily at hand, and he showed indignation when it was necessary, particularly when Governor Romney challenged him on their preparedness in the Libya situation.
I think the most striking thing was where it looked like it was going to get physical at one point, where Romney was really trying to test him. What was your reaction to that interchange where he asked a question, the president would try to answer the question, he would interrupt again?
The issue there was really a test. It was to see whether each of them could stand their ground, whether the president could be presidential and maintain his right to state his issues and not be interrupted and to be treated with respect. And I think in that respect there, the way he conducted himself was really first rate.
You were in a room with other people. You were not in the actual debate room, but you were in a room on campus with John Derser, the president of the Federation of Labor, and a number of other folks. What was the reaction in the room? You were sitting in a room with a lot of Republicans. That I know.
Well, I think it was a mixed group. I think probably predominantly there were Democrats there, but we were sitting close to Michael Fitzpatrick, a Republican assemblyman who's a very nice man, but also one of the most conservative.
Yeah, he is one of the nicest and yet one of the most conservative people I've ever met in my life. To Michael's credit, is when you need to talk to him, even if he disagrees with you, he will have a conversation with you about an issue, no matter what the issue is. I respect him for that much.
And Michael focused, I think, again, on the issue that from Romney's point of view, Romney challenged the president on the issue of whether he had created jobs and whether this administration could be judged as a success based on whether we've come out of the recession successfully. And he believes that the president has not succeeded in that area. That was the kind of the Republican view, and the point that they feel that Romney scored based on that issue and attacking the economy, they believe that was the success that he had. However, I think that probably on the basis of the facts and the way that Romney, that the president was able to come back on the issue of China and on the issue of women workers, he was able to connect more intimately with important segments of the population.
I thought the first question, the way it was posed, was a very good lead-in for Romney. The very first kid that got up and said, I'm not going to be able to find a job. That was a real punch, that question, I thought.
The issue of jobs is a very difficult one, and if you're playing by your heart as a Democrat, you believe that the president has done everything that he possibly could to try to get this economy moving. And as he said, the economy was bleeding 800,000 jobs a month as a result of the recession we had entered into because of the policies of the Bush administration. He was able to stem the tide because of the stimulus while it was in effect. The Republicans blocked him at every turn as he tried to put forward programs that would create.
You and I have, for the last 4 years, been having that conversation about various bills and how the Republicans have done everything possible to block even things that he took from their playbook, even bills that he authored from looking at the Heritage Foundation papers or the Cato Foundation papers, where he took ideas from those very conservative think tanks and incorporated them into legislation. He still got no cooperation from the Republicans, and whatever they could knock down, they did knock down. Why do you think he didn't talk about that tonight?
I think because it sounds too much like sour grapes, because when you're elected, you're asked to lead, you're asked to succeed and to solve problems. If you blame someone else for your lack of success when you're the president, it has a hollow ring to it, I think he believes. We believe that the policies that he would have put forward would have been significant and would have changed the outcome of our economic condition that we're in right now. I think for Romney's perspective, he'll point to the lack of success, even though Obama will say we have improved, we have created jobs, it's not nearly enough. So in that respect, Romney scores points, I think, with those people who are undecided and who don't have the kind of firm beliefs that we have as we're discussing this about what it would take to cure the ills of our economy. If you don't have firm beliefs in that regard, then you look at issues of substance and style, and you're very much attracted to the idea that, hey, you're the president, why aren't we better off now?
One thing that struck me that didn't come out in the questioning, or maybe wasn't chosen to come out in the questioning, was the wide range of flip-flopping that we've heard in the Romney campaign since the primaries. So before the primaries, this guy was more conservative than anybody else in the fold, and he would out Gingrich, and out Ron Paul, whatever he had to do. Now, all of a sudden, it's, I'm not going to outlaw abortion, I'm not going to look for assault weapons, I'm not going to tax the middle class, et cetera, where he seems like the most fatherly, nicest guy in the world. How do you think that will, and it wasn't challenged, how do you think that will register with voters? Are they listening to the moderate Mitt Romney, or did his strength come from the conservative end of the party?
Clearly, his success with the electorate comes from creating confusion. Policies he's stating publicly today, a few weeks before the election, have nothing to do with the Republican platform, because they found out that adhering to that platform is very attractive to the Tea Party faction of his party, but not attractive to the electorate as a whole. So I think that positions he'll take will be designed to create as much confusion as possible for those who are in that middle area, that kind of swing area, and haven't made up their minds yet.
He got a tremendous bounce from the last debate, Romney did. The president was not on his game.
Right.
Really did a poor job. And those of us who liked the president were not happy with his performance in the debate, and we came away from it saying, oh, we're going to have a Republican president. I mean, we really did. I looked at it with my wife, and she said, that's our next president. I hate to tell you, honey. And I said, you're not telling me anything I don't know. If this doesn't change. And then we had the Benghazi situation, which he owned up. He took the responsibility for, even though Clinton tried to deflect it from him. What do you see as the chance of him getting a surge from this debate?
In the last debate, we were left thinking that he either, number one, he had an off night, he was tired and wasn't with it, or number two, on the issues of the economy, maybe it was true that he really didn't believe in the policies that we would like him to espouse and which we would think are a part of his economic policy, and the Republicans have frustrated. Tonight, he came back and spoke forcefully about the accomplishments of his administration, talked about the ways we can create new jobs and create energy independence, and I think scored a lot of points in two specific areas by being very direct and singling them out. One was the issue of women workers. He connected really closely with women on the issue of the Lilly Ledbetter question, where Romney was not able to say that he really could do anything specific to move women through the glass ceiling other than to address the issues of the economy, which he would do by giving tax breaks to big business. So in that respect, I think that the president made an important connection this time that he didn't do last time.
You're listening to Labor Lines in our post-debate discussion with Roger Clayman of the Long Island Federation of Labor. We'll be right back after a few short messages. Please stay with us. When we get back, we're going to talk about the China issue.
We've taken all you give. It's getting hard to make a living. Mr. President, if pity on the working man. We ain't asking you to love us. You may place yourself high above us. Mr. President, the pity on the working man. I know it may sound funny, with people everywhere running out of money. We just can't make it by ourselves. It is cold and the wind is blowing. We need something to keep us going. Mr. President, the pity on the working man.
My Country 96.1.
Have you been injured on the job? Is workers' compensation giving you all that you're entitled to, or just giving you the runaround? Insurance company lawyers figure out ways to minimize your benefits. You need representation too. Fusco, Brandenstein & Rada is a full-service disability law firm with 8 convenient offices throughout the metropolitan area. We've been successfully representing workers' compensation clients for over 35 years. We only get paid when you get paid, and our fees are set by the Workers' Compensation Board, so you don't get a bill in the mail. Check out our website, fbrlaw.com. That's fbrlaw.com, or call toll-free 1-800-416-5454 to see how we can help you. That's 1-800-416-5454. Fusco, Brandenstein & Rada, the disability lawyers.
This is Neil Tappel, publisher of Labor Press. Check us out at laborpress.org for up-to-date labor news. laborpress.org.
Maybe you've seen me at your supermarket, taking your order at the bakery or the deli counter, or greeting you with a smile at the checkout. Or you haven't seen me because I've been busy stocking shelves before you get to the store, or preparing food so they're waiting for you on the shelves or in the cases. During my free time, you might have bumped into me while I was helping my union at a community blood drive or a food bank. I'm a member of the UFCW, RWDSU Local 338, and I'm proud of what I do. We're proud to serve you, and we hope you'll support us so that we can feed our families, too. To learn more, give us a call at 888-770-8510. That's 888-770-8510. Or log on to rwdsulocal338.org. This has been a message from a united and determined RWDSU Local 338. John Durso, President.
My Country 96.1.
Sitting alone in the dark, wasting my time in the park, 'cause I got nowhere to go. Had me a job till the market fell out. Tried hard to borrow, but there was no help. Now I've got nowhere to go. I need a job for these two hands. I'm a working man with nowhere to go.
And now here's more of Labor Lines with attorney Vic Fusco.
Welcome back to Labor Lines and our post-presidential debate discussion with Roger Clayman of the Long Island Federation of Labor. We asked Roger to comment on the discussion that the President and Governor Romney had about China affecting our economy here in the United States.
On the question of China, the president scored some points this time by challenging Romney on his policies from Bain Capital and pointing out that he's not the guy to be talking about getting tough with China when he's the guy who's made a lot of money by shipping jobs to China.
Do you think Romney handled that question well, though? Romney identified the problem as currency manipulation more than price manipulation.
He's right about the currency manipulation, and it's fine to agree with the president about the issue of currency manipulation. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to take trade cases before the World Trade Organization? Are you going to invest strategically in American manufacturing? I think that this is where there's a great difference in that they think Romney is banking on the fact that the public will not agree that the government should play a role in stimulating any sector of our economy. He believes that by granting tax breaks to businesses and to individuals, that in and of itself will stimulate economic growth. Obama wants to be much more proactive and target the kind of tax breaks he will provide, particularly to those companies that will provide jobs in this country. So he's hoping that generally the public doesn't agree that the government ought to have a role, and that's where he hoped to score points. I think, though, the president was able to deflect that advantage or that tact on his part by pointing out that his policies with respect to China are hypocritical because of what Bain Capital has done.
I think the president actually had the gloves on when it came to the policies of Bain Capital in China. Charlie Kernighan just issued a devastating report this week that I'm sure the administration was aware of, but nothing came out as to some of the corporations that Bain Capital actually had investment in, being particularly backward and brutal corporations where workers are basically slaves. And he talked about some Bain Capital investment, recent investment in those companies. Now, his response to that, of course, was his interests are all in a blind trust. Does that answer the question that I have no control over that if they're in a blind trust, and neither does the president in whatever's in his pension?
Obama handled that in the right way by saying, well, I'm sure, Governor, that your pension's a lot bigger than mine. Because I think that's about as deeply as the public is really able to deal with the question of blind trust. It's not one where you're going to score a lot of points by arguing the personal finances of either one of them.
When Romney was asked to contrast himself to President Bush,
yeah,
that was kind of a loaded question because President Bush went out very unpopular at the end of his term. He had some low ratings until 9/11. Then he had a surge. But at the end of his term, he went out as an unpopular president. And he tried to differentiate himself from Bush by saying the times were different. Did he really answer the question, in your opinion?
He answered it in a way that tried to draw a difference between himself and President Bush. He did it in this way, by saying that President Bush, just like President Obama, was responsible for presiding over a large deficit. The deficit that, as we know, was created under President Bush by running a couple of wars on the credit card, by the huge tax cuts that were given. Those things created an enormous deficit, plus the cost of paying for the benefits that people had to have because we're in a large recession. So I think he on that issue of the deficit, that's where he drew the line and said he was different because of his 5-point program. The 5-point program was not really well drawn out.
Now, there were a number of comments on the news from people who were Twittering and Googling and saying, but he never talked about the 5-point program.
He did list those issues, but he didn't, once again, though, that 5-point program, it really rests upon the whole idea of the economy being stimulated by tax cuts. And he still fails to do the math for us.
The only convincing discussion of that I heard was former President Clinton. The only convincing discussion that would get to the average voter, where he talked about the numbers and he talked about arithmetic. We said, I'm not that bright of a guy, I'm a country boy, and it's arithmetic how you balance a budget. That really drove it home. And I didn't hear the president really drive that point home. Basically could have lifted Bill Clinton's speech on that.
He could have. He chose not to do that. He talked about the job creation policies that he has. I think that for Romney, the issue was to draw distance between himself and Bush, and in that respect, he did it.
Do you think he did it in a way that was diplomatically not to diss President Bush? That he did it, but he didn't disrespect President Bush?
Well, I don't think that it really matters to the Republican Party at this point whether they diss President Bush or not. They haven't shown any respect for him in any of the proceedings that have gone forward. He wasn't anywhere near the convention, has never been near any of the candidates. They don't even mention his name, except in this instance to point out that he was responsible for failed policies. The question that the public has to ask themselves is, how much different would the Romney proposals be than the Bush policy?
You know, they keep talking about the success of President Reagan, but they don't talk about the deficits that Reagan left after his presidency, and President Obama didn't raise that issue either. Why not?
Well, I think that you explained that already when you said that nobody seems to be able to do it except President Clinton. I think that to tackle that subject and to get lost in that thicket of numbers, you have to be very confident that you've got a very quick way of doing it. Because we talk to our union members, what we try to explain to them is that if you provide tax cuts that go mainly to the wealthy and you cut back on social programs as a result, as the only way to justify those programs, you're not resolving the problems that you have in curing the deficit. All you're doing is squeezing the middle class even further. Those are very difficult arguments, and they have to be constructed carefully. I think that they try to stay out of that thicket.
Why do you think that when they talked about small business and helping small business, that the president didn't point out that he had a small business bill that the Republican Congress vetoed?
He said that he was trying to help small business, and he said that he had actually enacted, I think he said, 18 different tax cuts for small business. He said that he had determined that it was important to provide tax cuts for the middle class, and he said he had done it. So in that respect, the targeted kinds of tax cuts, he had succeeded in getting done. But he believed that, a larger overall kind of tax cut that Governor Romney would propose would do nothing for the middle class.
Didn't you think that Romney was now disavowing tax cuts?
I don't think so. I think that he tried to be cute with the tax cuts, tried to act as if he wasn't cutting taxes across the board, when in fact he is. Everything that he has said about his policies indicate a very large tax cut for everyone, and actually a tax increase for those making $100,000.
Long Island is lower middle class.
Yes. Yeah. If you do the math, that's the outcome of saying you're going to balance the budget. If you're going to provide those large tax increases at the top and still maintain a balanced budget, then somewhere revenue has to come from. And it has to come from those in the middle income wage earner. as well as rather severe cuts to Medicaid, because that's the only places that they can find the money.
Seems to me that President Obama should have more strength in some of the red states, which are also industrialized states, maybe a little bit on the ropes, but were always union states. Why do you think he's having some problems in those states, and some of them are kind of on the fence as far as the polling goes?
Well, I think that there's an ongoing problem that he faces among white male voters. And I think it has a lot to do with racism. It's something nobody wants to say, but I'm not running for office. I represent the labor movement, and I'm happy to say that that's what I believe the problem may be.
Yeah, you and me both, but I go by what I get on the internet every day, the barrage I get from some of my friends who lean right and who I don't believe are racist, but who will send me an email where the bottom line has a racial connotation, and I'll point it out to them. I'll say, I don't believe you're a racist, but when you send things like this out, it makes you look like a racist. They usually have no response to that.
So it's all very subtle. I think that's the difficulty that he is facing throughout the South in particular. Years of the Southern strategy, playing that race card, have been successful. But if we look at the key states, the key swing states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Iowa, Wisconsin, Colorado, Nevada, I think that we're going to see that there were probably some gains made as a result of this debate, at least stabilizing the lead that he may have had earlier. Well, of course, have to wait to see those early returns. But so that's where the election is won and lost. Nobody pitches a shutout in this league.
Yeah.
If you win, you win, and they call a landslide 55% or greater. We don't see landslides anymore.
Yeah.
We have a country that's divided about what the right thing is to do. And I believe that we're divided even more because we've elected a black president.
Yeah.
But I think that he's done a very good job of bringing the issues home to working Americans, for women, and for small business.
And
seniors. That was his job tonight.
And seniors.
I think that got that done.
He didn't really attack Romney on the seniors, where I think they have a lot of vulnerability.
You look at the issue of Medicare and Social Security. This has been the great Republican lie in this campaign, that they're the ones who are out to protect Medicare and protect Social Security, and that Obama is cutting Medicare funds. This is a complete falsehood that they've created, and saying that Obamacare takes money out of Medicare. That's not the case at all. What they've really done is they've saved money by the reimbursements they provide to private insurers who are getting subsidies to compete with Medicare.
What's your prediction for the next debate, Roger?
My prediction is that, I think it's going to go fairly well for the president, as it would for any sitting president when you're talking about foreign policy. People tend to respect the office of the president and a solemn responsibility that he has to protect the country as the commander-in-chief. I think Obama scored some points in that area in talking about Libya, and it was pretty clear that where Romney tried to attack him on his leadership, that was a place where he faltered, because he appeared to be disrespectful of the president's authority. So foreign affairs is a good way to finish up for a sitting president.
Well, that's a good way to finish up with Roger Clayman, too. I want to thank you for taking the time out. I really appreciate it, Roger. Well, that was Roger Clayman, the executive director of the Long Island Federation of Labor, with some of his reactions following the presidential debate at Hofstra University. When we get back from the break, we're going to have 3 reports from our field reporter and associate producer, Christian Perez, who was also at Hofstra and who got to speak with Congressman Peter King, former Congressman Rick Lazio, and most interestingly, Otto Reich, who was a member of the Reagan administration, actually serving as ambassador to Venezuela, to get their reactions.
All I wanna do is make a living, find some honest work for a decent wage. Right now I'd take anything they'd give me. But they say there's nothing for a man my age. It takes a job to make a man a man. And if you ain't been there, you can't understand. It's hard to face the world you had in hand, 'cause it takes a job to make a man a man. Yeah.
We'll be right back with more of Labor Lines and attorney Vic Fusco right after a quick message.
My Country 96.1.
For a ball player, that's job satisfaction. But if you're not getting satisfaction from your job, maybe you need a union. The members of RWDSU Local 338 make good money, have great health care and other benefits. They get respect on the job, and they know they have 15,000 members watching their backs. RWDSU Local 338. Call 888-770-8510 or log on to rwdsulocal338.org. This has been a message from RWDSU UFCW Local 338, John Durso, President.
You know that old joke, what's the world's biggest lie? I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. What's the best time to get legal advice with a Social Security disability claim? Believe it or not, before you actually file that claim. But most lawyers don't want to get involved until the case is ready for a hearing, and by then, it may be too late. Call Fusco, Brandenstein, and Rada, the disability lawyers. They'll talk to you before you file that claim, and they'll give you the proper advice. If your claim has merit, they will even file your application for you. They have offices in Uniondale, Woodbury, Comac, Medford, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. They have been successfully handling Social Security disability claims for over 30 years. For a no-obligation consultation about Social Security disability, call Fusco, Brandenstein, and Rada. Toll-free, 1-800-416-5454. That's 1-800-416-5454. Fusco, Brandenstein, and Rada, the disability lawyers.
My Country 96.1.
Some people think we don't have the right to say it's my country. Before they give in, they'd rather fuss and fight than say it's my country. I paid 300 years or more of slave driving sweat and welts on my back. This is my country. Too many have died in protecting my pride for me to go second class. We've survived a hard blow, and I want you to know that you'll face us at last. And I know you will give consideration. Shall we perish unjust or live equal as a nation? This is my country.
And now here's more of Labor Lines with attorney Vic Fusco.
Welcome back to Labor Lines. Following the presidential debate, we interviewed Roger Clayman from the Long Island Federation of Labor, who has a distinctively Democratic perspective. But now our field reporter, Christian Perez, was at Hofstra and got to speak with several Republican stalwarts and got their perspective about the most recent presidential debate. First up is Representative Peter King.
How do you feel this debate reflected the interests of Long Islanders?
Key issue on Long Island right now is jobs and the economy, and young people not being able to find work. Other President Obama was not able to address that adequately. I thought that Governor Romney showed his vision, showed his alternative, and as a result of that, I think that resonated with Long Islanders.
Is there any specific issue that Romney mentioned that you feel most resonated?
When he brought home the fact that President Obama went to Las Vegas to hustle money rather than stay in Washington to find out what happened in Benghazi.
One of the biggest distinctions that the two candidates have is relating to tax policy. How do you feel the tax policy was elaborated on?
I thought Governor Romney made his point, made it very well, and Barack Obama keeps going back to his old point about a $5 trillion tax cut, which even his own campaign committee said isn't true.
And Governor Romney advocated basically no taxes for investments or for savings for people under $200,000. And how do you feel this will spur the economy?
It'll encourage people to invest. It'll also encourage businesses to come to America because they realize that people are going to be more willing to invest.
And do you think this debate's going to have an impact on how the campaigns will continue in the future?
I think, if anything, it strengthens Governor Romney's position because it's another week closer to the election day, and Mitt Romney's lead is going to continue to increase.
I'm here with Otto Reich. He was the former ambassador to Venezuela under the Reagan administration. And we're here in the debate hall right after, well, not the debate hall, we're here to reflect on a debate that just took place, which got kind of heated at times. Who do you feel won the debate?
I don't think it was a basketball game and you can count the points. There's no question that the President of the United States did not do the kind of job that one expects from a president. I think that Governor Romney showed that he is more conversant with some of the issues than the President is. The President speaks in generalities. He did not present any specifics for his next 4 years. And I think Governor Romney was correct when he says that 4 more years of this president will look exactly like the last 4 years. And the last 4 years have been an economic disaster for this country. 23 million people out of work, 49 million Americans now receiving food stamps as opposed to 32 million 4 years ago. That's that's almost a 50% increase. Actually, more than a 50%, about a 50% increase in food stamp recipients. He doubled the budget deficit. He doubled the debt of the United States when he said he was going to cut it in half in 4 years. I mean, how can you believe anything that the president says when he hasn't accomplished any of the things that he came into office promising?
One of the biggest distinctions was in tax policy. Mitt Romney made an argument for not taxing the savings of anyone who earns under $200,000 a year. On the opposite end, Obama would argue for an increase in taxes for the wealthy.
How do you define wealthy? That's the problem. That's the problem. I think you heard President Obama speak about the wealthy without defining them. Governor Romney defined exactly who he's talking about when he says that the top 5% of the population, which pays 60% of all the taxes, now think about it, that means that the other 95% only pay 40% of the remainder of the total income of the United States. That Romney is not going to reduce the tax payments of that top 5%. When Obama talks about the wealthy, he's including a lot of people who have small companies that make a large amount of money in gross terms, but in net terms, they don't because they hire people, they have a lot of expenses, and they would be devastated if they were to be taxed at a higher level. And I think it clearly indicates that President Obama, since he's never created a company, never run a company, never been in the private sector, never met a payroll, he has never produced a profit. He's only produced a debt in the last 4 years. He doesn't know how the economy works. And if all we have to do is look at the results of the last 4 years to see the proof of that.
One of the other issues that came up was relating to how Romney could create a distinction between himself and the Bush administration. And that is one of the fears that many voters may still have. How do you feel the Romney campaign has been able to distinguish itself from the policies of the Bush administration?
I think Governor Romney did an excellent job. I have to tell you, I was very impressed because I wouldn't have expected that question. That was a very interesting question. I think it was a bit unfair because to say, Governor Romney, you're a Republican, so therefore you must be just like George Bush, the last Republican. Well, you can say the same thing about President Obama. Gee, President Obama, you're a Democrat, so you must be another Jimmy Carter. I actually think he is another Jimmy Carter, but I wouldn't ask that question. Having said that, I think that in addition to all of the answers that the governor gave, the point is not how does Governor Romney differ from President Bush. The point is how does Governor Romney differ from President Obama. Romney's not running against Bush. He's running against Obama. Obama has a record to defend. He can't defend it. That's the big difference.
How do you feel this debate is going to have an impact on the overall campaign season?
We'll see that tomorrow and the days after. Nobody could have foreseen the impact of the first debate. It propelled Governor Romney to the lead in the election. One poll that came out this morning had Governor Romney ahead by 4 points in the battleground states where he had been behind. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see how the American people saw this in on their television screens.
But what issue do you think is going to be the biggest takeaway from this debate?
I think the economy. I think the economy dominates this debate, as it should. The United States is in the worst economic condition that it has been since the Great Depression. President Obama said he was going to take us out of it. There is no question he inherited a bad economic situation. Nobody denies that. But he's made it worse. And he denies that he's made it worse. He says that he's made it better. How has he made it better when we have the same level of unemployment? We have twice as much debt. We have 50% more people on food stamps. And we're not creating jobs. And the economy is growing at a slower rate this year than the year before, and last year it was growing at a slower rate than the year before that. The economy is slowing down again.
Do you think that Romney is going to be bringing Reagan-style policies to the White House?
I think the same answer that Governor Romney gave to the question about how does he differ from Bush can be applied to Reagan. As much as I love Reagan, I worked for him for 8 years, and I think he saved this country and he saved the free world by restoring American confidence in itself and in the United States, restoring the economy and defeating communism. I think that there are a lot of things that Romney, frankly, reminds me of about President Reagan, but he's a different person, and these are different times. We don't have a Soviet Union. We have scientific and technological breakthroughs that didn't exist. But what he does have that reminds me about Reagan is this optimism about the United States. And the fact that he is willing to try different things, like on the question of energy. I can't believe that President Obama really had the temerity to say that he's in favor of oil, gas, and coal when all of the industries, the leaders of those industries are saying that this administration is killing the coal industry through regulation, when he has curtailed exploration of oil in the Gulf and off of the coast of Virginia, when he's put all kinds of obstacles in the way of things like the Keystone Pipeline. He didn't answer the question about the Keystone pipelines. Oh, we've built enough pipelines to go around the world. Why don't you talk about the pipeline that's going to bring Canadian oil to the United States? When he said he wasn't going to allow it, the Canadians started building a pipeline to the Pacific coast to ship that oil to China. That's what 4 more years of Obama is going to do. We're going to look like Greece.
Quite a speaker, that Otto Reich. Now we're going to join Christian mid-interview with Rick Lazio.
Well, how do you feel Romney's stance on these issues are offering a difference from the previous 4 years?
I think in a vast array. I think, number one, he laid out this agenda, this 5-point agenda. So he talked about, in fact, they are going to be much more effective, much more aggressive in exploring domestic energy sources to ensure that America is energy independent, that he is going to work to support small businesses. That as a businessman, as somebody who's been successful for 25 years, he knows how businesses work. He's going to make sure he supports small businesses, which are the engine of growth, and he's not going to increase taxes on small businesses, as President Obama has suggested. He's going to get the debt under control, because we all know that spending more and borrowing more is just a future tax waiting to happen. Instead of doing what President Obama has done, which is to promise cutting the deficit in half, but actually doubling the deficit, Governor Romney is going to reduce spending, he's going to reduce the deficit, he's going to bring it more in line with historical norms, and he's going to bring about comprehensive tax reform that's going to unleash economic growth. And that is not what President Obama is promising. President Obama is promising higher taxes and more of the same old that has never worked to expand the economic pie or create more jobs.
Now, do you think this town hall debate was beneficial to the governor?
Yeah, I like this format for him. I think he's conversational. I think he's very good at it. I would have liked to have heard more direct interaction with the audience. I think if the moderator maybe stepped back a little bit and allowed the people to ask questions, I would have thought that the event would have been a little bit more enjoyable for some people who would have had a wider breadth of questions. But having said that, I think the basic questions that Long Islanders care about were addressed tonight. They do care about lower taxes, they do care about economic growth, they do care about jobs, they do care about education, they do care about immigration. Those issues were raised tonight, and I think the candidates were pretty effective in sort of laying out their respective differences. But I think, in my view, Governor Romney had the position and the agenda that was more in line with what Long Islanders would want. Lower taxes, more economic growth, more jobs, more opportunity when you graduate from school, and an immigration policy that supports people with skills that we need.
Now, following up on the issue of taxes, he actually said there would be no taxes on savings for middle-class people. How do you feel this initiative would help spur economic growth?
It's a huge help for people who are middle-income people. I mean, there are so many people who are middle-income people or working-class people that have insufficient savings for retirement or to send their child to school or to save for a down payment for a home. And so this initiative, what Governor Romney says that he supports is, let's eliminate taxes altogether on interest and dividends so we can promote savings and we can promote investment. There'll be no tax at all for middle-income people on savings and investment. Taxes will be in place for upper-income people, but they do an okay job with savings and investment. His focus is going to be trying to encourage middle-income people to be able to put more money aside without that being taxed away.
How do you feel the Romney policies will specifically encourage industry? Because you're talking about trying to bring back auto industry or any other kind of industry. Is that possible to regain in a U.S. industry?
Sure, absolutely. Well, under this administration, we've lost 600,000 manufacturing jobs. One way to bring those manufacturing jobs back is to lower the price of energy because manufacturing tends to be very energy dependent. And so what Governor Romney has talked about, hopefully will be President Romney, will be a comprehensive energy policy that's all the above, where he would promote clean coal, natural gas, and oil exploration on our lands so that we are energy dependent, driving down the price and increasing the access to energy that will help the manufacturing sector. He's also saying, I want to make sure that I lower taxes on businesses, both corporations through comprehensive corporate tax reform and on smaller businesses. This is one of the key differences between President Obama and Governor Romney, that for most of the small businesses who do file their taxes as an individual, not as a corporation, they would face higher taxes under President Obama's plan. Under Governor Romney, he would say, we're going to reduce taxes for those small businesses that are the job creators, give them more tax relief so they can reinvest in expansion and hiring more Long Islanders, more suburbanites. Yeah, as a Long Islander, what do we care about? We care about jobs, underemployment, unemployment, our kids graduating from school without jobs. We care about taxes. We care about the cost of gasoline and energy. We're one of the highest cost areas in the entire nation. And
I didn't hear the word property taxes come up.
Well, property taxes are going to be translated through in terms of how we deal with some of these federal policies. One of the big drivers, by the way, of property taxes is Medicaid. And in New York, we're spending over $1 billion a week. You're going to begin to transfer these costs, these Medicaid costs, to states. They'll be held harmless. They'll be getting the same amount of money they got before, but they'd be able to manage efficiencies in a way that allows them to do that. Right now, governments like Nassau County or Suffolk County, they get passed on the Medicaid bill, but they've got no ability to manage these costs.
That was Congressman Rick Lazio, obviously a former Republican congressman, a very strong supporter of Mitt Romney. We're going to skip our normal break and go to Christian Perez's interview with Ted Strickland, the former Democratic governor from the state of Ohio, which is a key swing state. So his comments are particularly interesting and significant.
And as the former governor of Ohio, how do you think that this will have an impact on such an important swing state?
Well, Ohio is the ultimate swing state. No Republican has ever won the presidency without winning Ohio. I do not think that there is any way Governor Romney can be elected to the presidency if he loses Ohio. And he's going to lose Ohio. Ohio is important. You know, Governor Romney's practically living in Ohio these days. I think he was in Ohio 3 days last week. He's planning on coming back. But he has the wrong message for Ohio. He was against the auto rescue, and that's huge in Ohio. We believe perhaps 800 to 850,000 jobs in Ohio are connected to the auto industry. How can Governor Romney come to Ohio and talk about wanting to jumpstart the economy when he took the wrong position on rescuing the auto industry? That's just one issue, but it's a very important one in Ohio.
What's another issue that you feel will resonate the most with Ohio voters as well as the country?
Well, I think the whole issue of the middle class versus the richest 1%. The president wants to cut taxes for working middle class folks. Governor Romney wants to cut taxes for the richest among us. Governor Romney feels that it's correct for him to pay a lower tax rate if he makes $20 million a year through his investment income versus someone who actually gets out and works for a living and may make $40,000 or $50,000 a year and pay a higher tax rate Governor Romney says that's fair, and that's the way it ought to be. There are a lot of things that are important to Ohioans. When I first heard that Governor Romney had a Swiss bank account, I thought to myself, that's going to be a problem in Ohio. And then I found out about the Cayman Island involvement and the Bermuda Shell Corporation. And then he talked about liking to fire people, and he talked about his wife driving multiple Cadillac. And then we saw him on that videotape talking with such disdain and disrespect for 47% of the American people, and many of them are Ohioans. I think that was the tipping point. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Governor Romney being able to win Ohio, because I think Ohioans believe that when they saw Governor Romney in that videotape talking to his rich contributors, not knowing that he was being recorded, that they saw something about his inner self. And it's not a pretty picture, because he was talking disrespectfully about military people, about senior citizens who worked all their lives for Social Security and Medicare, disabled individuals, people with mental illness, anyone who he says is a taker rather than a giver. I think that really soured the people of Ohio with Governor Mitt Romney.
Another big issue that came up was about the idea of U.S. industry being revitalized. Do you feel like, given how much industry has been sent to China, sent abroad in general, that we're able to revitalize U.S. industry?
Well, it's coming back in Ohio. There's a new steel mill in Youngstown, Ohio, in part because of investments that were made with the Recovery Act resources. Manufacturing is increasing in Ohio. Manufacturing jobs are being created in Ohio. So I really believe that we can bring back industries from China and elsewhere. My understanding is that Ford Motor Company is bringing some production back from Mexico to the Cleveland area. So we can see a revitalization of the industrial base of our country. I personally believe that we need a national industrial policy to encourage that kind of revitalization of manufacturing in America.
One of the big swings in the opinion polls relating to Romney that followed the debates was among women voters. How do you feel the candidates were able to or not able to reach out to women voters?
Well, tonight I felt like the president was a clear winner with women voters. For example, the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act that the president strongly advocates for and supported, Mitt Romney hasn't been willing to take a position on that legislation. The matter of choice, Mitt Romney wants to overturn Roe v. Wade. He wants to defund Planned Parenthood. He's even indicated at one point during the Republican primary season that he would support the heartbeat bill, or the personhood bill, that would say that at the moment of conception, that was a person and would have all the rights under the 14th Amendment of a person, which would basically outlaw all abortions and make abortion in reality a murder. That's not where women are. That's not where most men are. That's certainly not where most Americans are. But that's just one example of an extreme position that Romney has taken in the past and is now trying to moderate. And I don't think we're going to be fooled by his attempt to reinvent himself at the last minute.
But do you think Obama has done much else to reach out to women voters?
The president's been a strong advocate for women and women's issues. Absolutely.
Do you think this debate is going to have a significant impact on the way the campaigns are being run leading up to the last 3 weeks?
Well, I have said all day that this was a very important event, and I continue to believe that. In my thinking, if the president can just stabilize his position, he's going to win this election. And I think the president's performance tonight not only stabilized his position, but really adds to it. And so I think what happened here tonight was very, very important.
We've been talking to Ted Strickland, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
So that's our program. I think the conclusion you can make is that if you're a Republican, Mitt Romney won, and if you're a Democrat, Barack Obama won, and if you're in the middle, you're going to have to decide. Right after the show, we'd love for you to join us for the Walk Along for Lupus, a fabulous walk with a lot of great people. The Roadhouse Band will be entertaining, playing some of your favorite country music, some of your favorite oldies rock and roll. And the purpose of the walk is to benefit the Lupus Alliance of Long Island and Queens, which provides patient services and research dollars to fight lupus and to find a cure. So that's Field 6, Eisenhower Park in Nassau County. Registration starts at 8 a.m., so we will see you there, hopefully. Please come by and say hello to me. I'll be with the Roadhouse Band, and we'd love to meet you. We're getting back to the music faster on WJVC 96.1. Rowdy Yates is next with Country Gold.